unspoken principle of Pan-African nationalism is independence of effort. Of course, you know the name of the organization that I started after returning from my first transcontinental tour of Africa, September 21st, 2005. The International Movement for the Independence and Protection of African People was born at Pop Rob's Grab Bag at 27th and Lehigh Avenue. Nonetheless, independence of effort in the economic, the political, and in the national sense. Independence of effort is translated into self-reliance. Pan-African self-reliance. Whatever it is we need to do, whatever it is that we must have, we must do it by ourselves and for ourselves without any outside help. This is a concept that generates a lot of controversy. This is a concept that black people have had a lot of trouble understanding. And the reason we have had so much trouble understanding it is because our sojourn in America, as well as the colonialism that we faced here in Africa, has made us thoroughly dependent on our former slave masters and colonizers. Thoroughly dependent. So most of us cannot even begin to garner or think about what life would be like without being able to depend on the European for some sort of succor or sustenance whenever our plans don't materialize. If we are to be respected as grown men and grown women, then we must begin to operate as grown men and as grown women. We cannot continue to behave as children who go out recklessly, squandering their monies and resources, and then turn to their mothers and fathers for help after theirs has run out. We must become our own insurance. We must become our own safeguards. If we are to achieve the respect of the world, then African people throughout the world must become thoroughly inoculated with the belief in self-reliance. The belief that you can solve your own problems by yourself. One of the greatest failures of black organizations in Philadelphia today, throughout America, and indeed throughout the continent here in Africa, is that most of our organizations are subsidized through corporate welfare and governmental welfare. We exist off of the financing of white corporations and white governments. Any black organization that is subsidized by European funding is a European organization. Much the same as the blood in your body. If the blood in a human edifice is European, then the body be European. And if the blood is mostly African, then the body be African. We can understand this in the biological sense, but for some reason, we cannot understand this in the political sense. You are not a black organization unless you are funded by black money exclusively. The quote that I always draw from the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey was when he was once asked whether or not he would accept a donation from a European who was favorable to the Garvey movement of the 20s. He said, "Tell them no thank you, to keep their money. This is a black man's movement, and only black men will fund it." Now, of course, it is difficult to fund any serious effort for blacks because we do not support one another. So naturally, the amount of time that would be expended in getting us to where we need to be would naturally be more than what would have been spent had we accepted welfare from governments and white corporations. However, I would rather wait 10 years to own something that is totally mine than spend 10 months begging and being economized by European interest, only to know that after being economized and funded by European interests that they would be able to take back the money or destroy whatever help they gave me at a moment's notice simply by saying, "I'm not going to fund you anymore," or "I want back everything that I gave you." And this is something that we have to thoroughly understand. We must thoroughly understand this, okay? Independence of effort. That means your community must be independent. Your organizations must be independent. Your schools must be independent. Your economic apparatuses must be totally independent. If it's not going to be independent, it's going to be a waste of our time, and ultimately it's going to be used against you. And for the black people who have argued with me time and time again, Brother Umar, we're going to use the white man's money against him. We're going to use European dollars to fund the African struggle, but we're going to use his money against him. You can't. Okay? That is impossible. Okay? Because the white man does not even give out money unless he first has assurances of what you're going to do. When you apply for a grant, or when you go to City Hall begging the mayor or begging City Council to fund your black organization, when you do that, before they give you a single dollar, you have to pledge certain things to them. There is a contract, verbal or non-verbal, that they have with you. And the first time you even think about stepping outside the confines of that contract, not only will they strip you of your funding, you're likely to end up in jail. What are these promises? For those of you who have 501c3 corporations, you know the first promise is you're not allowed to get involved in any political effort. What good is a black organization who is not allowed to speak or work on behalf of African people? Okay, so you're automatically handcuffed to political neutrality the minute you get a 501. Also, most of these grants stipulate that the funding that is being given cannot be used exclusively for race-based purposes. So there can be no independence of effort in your organization if you are a grant receiver. You have to let whites and Asians and Arabs and everybody else into your fold. What good are you as a black organization if you can't even keep the organization black in the first place? So our second principle of Pan-African nationalism is self-reliance. Total independence of effort. Yes, it is difficult, but anything worth having is always difficult, and anything that is easily given can be easily taken away.